My girlfriend admitted she cheated. She looked me dead in the eyes, smirked, and said she did it because she needed a real man. That sentence alone should have knocked the air right out of my chest. But what stung even more was the smug way she said it, like she was proud, like breaking me down was some sort of trophy she could parade around. And as if that wasn't enough, my own friends, the people I thought would have my back, laughed along with her. That laughter cut deeper than her words ever could. It was the sound of betrayal multiplied. I sat there, staring at her, trying to process the moment. Her face was so calm, so satisfied, like she had just won something. The cruelty in her eyes made me realize she had probably been rehearsing this moment, waiting for the right time to throw it in my face. And the fact that she had the audacity to do it in front of my friends showed just how little she respected me, and how much she believed they'd side with her. She was right. They did. Their chuckles, the nudges, the smirks, every sound drilled into me like a nail in my coffin. In that split second, my mind screamed to yell, to lash out, to throw her words right back at her. But something inside me shifted. Instead of exploding, I smiled. A calm, deliberate smile that probably confused them all. I reached for my keys, the sound of the metal clinking against the table slicing through the noise in the room. I stood up slowly, deliberately, while her smirk widened as if she thought I was bluffing. My friends laughed harder, some even egging me on, thinking I'd lose my temper and make a fool of myself. But I didn't. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I didn't give her or them the satisfaction of seeing me break down. I placed some cash on the table, not for her, not for them, but just enough to cover my drink. Then I looked at her one last time, said nothing, and walked out. The silence in my chest was strange. No yelling, no begging, no chaos, just a numbness that felt almost peaceful. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to defend myself. I didn't feel like I had to explain why I was hurt, why her words mattered, why my friend's betrayal cut so deep. I just walked away, leaving them with their smug faces and shallow laughter. And here's the thing, they didn't expect it. She thought I would fight, that I would cry, that I would try to win her back. My friends thought they'd get entertainment, a show, maybe even a meltdown. Instead, they got nothing. My calm exit spoke louder than anything I could have said. It wasn't weakness, it was power. That night, as I drove away, the numbness in my chest slowly shifted into something else. Resolve. This wasn't the end of me. No, this was the beginning of something much bigger. My quiet smile, my keys in hand, and my silent departure weren't just an escape. They were the seed of my revenge. The cracks in our relationship had been forming long before, the night she smirked and told me she needed a real man. Looking back, I can see them clearly now, like tiny fractures in glass that eventually shattered everything. There were the late nights she brushed off with flimsy excuses, the way her phone suddenly became glued to her hand, the coldness that seeped into her voice whenever I asked a simple question. She stopped looking at me the way she used to, stopped treating me like someone she once loved. Instead, I became background noise, an obligation she tolerated rather than a partner she cherished. But the most brutal part wasn't just her, it was the people I called friends. The ones who should have pulled me aside and said, "Man, something's not right." Instead, they fed into her act. They laughed with her at my expense, brushed off my concerns as if I was paranoid, and enabled the very disrespect that hollowed out our relationship. Every time she took a jab at me, they chuckled. Every time she made a sly comment about me being boring or too safe, they went along with it, like it was just part of the entertainment. And me? I stayed silent. I kept convincing myself it was just jokes, that maybe I was being too sensitive, that love meant swallowing your pride sometimes. I let their laughter become normal. I let her smirks slide. I told myself that if I just gave her more patience, more money, more love, maybe she'd see my worth again. The truth is, I gave her everything I could. I paid for dinners, for trips, for little luxuries she didn't even notice anymore. I bent over backwards to support her when she struggled, even when she barely acknowledged my efforts. Emotionally, I stretched myself thin, trying to be her anchor while she chipped away at my dignity piece by piece. I silenced my own hurt to avoid arguments, telling myself it wasn't worth losing her over small things. But those small things added up. Every mocking laugh, every dismissive shrug, every night she forgot to come home. It was all chipping away at who I was. And the worst part? I wasn't just losing her. I was losing myself. That night at the table, when she confessed her cheating with that smug little smirk, it all became clear. Her words weren't just a revelation. They were a summary of everything I had ignored. The smirk, the laughter from my so-called friends, the way she looked at me like I was beneath her. It was the culmination of years of disrespect. I remember sitting in the car after walking out, gripping the steering wheel and letting the silence wash over me. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made, the way I bent myself just to keep her happy, while she mocked me behind my back. And now, my friends had shown me where their loyalty really was. In that moment, something hardened inside me. The humiliation of that night became a scar I knew I'd carry, but it also became a reminder, a symbol of everything I would never allow again. I made a silent promise to myself. This would be the last time anyone, her or anyone else, laughed at me while I stood there taking it. The last time I allowed myself to be the punchline of someone else's joke. That wasn't the night I lost. That was the night I started winning. Quietly, patiently, and on my own terms. When I left that night, I thought the silence would crush me. But instead, it felt different, like fresh air after being suffocated for too long. I sat alone in my car, the city lights glowing through the windshield, my hands resting loosely on the steering wheel. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't trying to explain myself. I wasn't trying to argue, to fix, or to plead. I had simply walked away. And that choice felt heavier than any words I could have spoken. Of course, my phone didn't let me forget what had just happened. At first, it buzzed non-stop, her messages pouring in, sharp and smug. So that's it? You just run away? Another one came seconds later. Pathetic, I knew you couldn't handle the truth. And then, as if twisting the knife, screenshots of group texts between my so-called friends started appearing. I could see them laughing about how I stormed out, mocking my silence, turning my pain into entertainment. The very people I trusted most had joined her chorus, turning me into the butt of their jokes even after I was gone. But then, after the wave of notifications, there was quiet. Hours passed. My phone screen stayed dark, and in that quiet, something inside me shifted. I expected to feel shattered. I expected tears, anger, rage, anything. But instead I felt calm, a strange, almost eerie calmness washed over me, as though I had finally stopped wrestling with a storm I could never control. That calm wasn't weakness, it was clarity. For the first time in years, I wasn't on the defensive. I wasn't trapped in her games or their laughter. I had taken the one thing they never expected, my silence and my absence, and in that absence I found strength. I remember sitting there and thinking, betrayal doesn't have to destroy you. Sometimes it awakens you. Sometimes it pulls back the curtain and shows you the truth about who you've been surrounding yourself with. I realized that night that I wasn't losing anything worth keeping. If my girlfriend thought humiliating me made her powerful, and if my friends thought laughing at me made them loyal to her, then what was I really holding on to? Nothing. So, instead of breaking down, I began to plan. Quietly, carefully. I started with the simplest step, deleting her messages without replying. Not one word. I didn't feed her ego with my anger, didn't give her the satisfaction of a fight. Then I went through my contacts, removing names one by one. The friends who had laughed at me, the people who had shown where they stood when it mattered most. It was like shedding a heavy skin, peeling away years of false loyalty and shallow companionship. The beauty of that night wasn't in revenge. It was in reclaiming myself. I didn't need to shout or prove anything. All I had to do was step out of their world, one quiet step at a time. Each tie I cut was a small act of freedom, a reminder that I was no longer chained to her smirk or their laughter. And as the night wore on, I sat in that silence, not as a man abandoned, but as a man finally walking away. They thought they had broken me. But the truth was, I was just getting started. The silence did the talking for me. After I walked away, after I cut myself off, the shift was almost immediate. The woman who had smirked at me, who had told me with so much confidence that she had found a real man, suddenly wasn't so sure of herself anymore. The moment she realized I hadn't come back that night, that I hadn't sent even a single reply, her calls began. First one, then 3, then 7 missed calls stacked on top of each other. Each voicemail had a new tone. Annoyance, then sarcasm, then desperation. By the time the sun came up, my phone looked like a battlefield of unanswered messages. I started cutting ties in quiet, deliberate steps. Our shared accounts. I removed myself, or locked them down. Plans we had made together, vacations, outings, even bills, I canceled or shifted into my own control. I no longer moved around the house like someone afraid of triggering her moods. I moved like someone free. Every small step away from her was a reminder that she had lost control, that her words had no weight on me anymore. And the funny thing about silence, it's heavy. Heavier than shouting, heavier than arguments. It echoes louder than anger ever could. She didn't know what to do with it. When I used to argue, she thrived on it. She enjoyed the fights, the drama, the stage. But my silence stripped her of that audience. All she had was her own guilt bouncing back at her. That's when the calls from my so-called friends began. They reached out one by one, trying to smooth things over. "Man, you overreacted. She was just being honest with you," another said. "Come on, don't throw everything away over one mistake." Their tone wasn't supportive. It was manipulative, an attempt to drag me back into their circle where my humiliation fed their entertainment. But I didn't bite. Every call went unanswered. Every message sat on read, and it was beautiful to watch the panic grow. These were the people who laughed when she mocked me. Now, without me playing along, they were scrambling. Without my presence, their jokes lost meaning. Without my silence to ridicule, their loyalty to her began to look more like desperation than friendship. I remember sitting in my apartment, phone buzzing across the table, just watching it vibrate endlessly. The more they tried, the calmer I felt. There's a strange kind of peace in letting people drown in their own noise while you sit back in quiet. I didn't need to scream, didn't need to explain. My absence was explanation enough. The power shift was complete. She went from confident smirks and cruel words to pleading voicemails and desperate apologies. My friends went from mocking my silence to begging me to hear them out. But I had already decided I was done. I wasn't fighting anymore. I wasn't begging for respect or attention. I was gone. And that was the loudest statement I could ever make. My silence wasn't weakness. It was strength. It was the reminder that I didn't need them, not anymore. And as their calls piled up, as their panic grew, I leaned back and let them feel the weight of every choice they had made. She showed up at my door like a storm that had finally broken. Her eyes were red, her makeup streaked, her voice cracked with desperation. For a moment, I almost didn't recognize her. This wasn't the woman who had smirked at me, who had called me weak, who had told me she needed a real man. This was someone cornered, stripped of her confidence, terrified of the silence I had wrapped around her. She pushed past me, crying, saying my name over and over, begging me to listen. Her words tumbled out in a frantic rush. She said it was a mistake, that she hadn't meant it the way it sounded. She swore it was just a joke gone too far, a moment of weakness, a slip she regretted. She even tried to twist it, claiming I had misunderstood, that my walking away had hurt her more than what she had said to me. For years, I had listened to her excuses, her justifications, her clever ways of spinning the truth until I doubted my own feelings. But this time, her voice sounded hollow. Because I saw it clearly now. She wasn't sorry for betraying me. She wasn't sorry for mocking me in front of others, or for laughing while my friends backed her up. She wasn't even sorry for admitting she cheated. No, she was only sorry that I had finally called her bluff. She was only sorry that I had left, that I had replaced my silence with absence, that I had stripped her of the power she thought she had over me. She cried harder when I didn't speak. She reached for my hands, clutched my arms, begging me to just talk to her. But I stayed calm. There was no anger in me, no urge to shout or punish. There was only clarity. I told her softly, almost gently, that I was done, that there was nothing left to save, that the person I had loved didn't exist anymore, maybe never had. Her sobs grew louder. She accused me of being cruel, of going too far by ignoring her, of cutting her off from everything we shared. She said I had embarrassed her by walking away, that I had ruined her image, and in that moment her mask slipped completely. Because every word she said revealed the truth. She wasn't mourning me. She was mourning her control. I opened the door and stepped aside, making it clear she had to leave. Her face twisted between rage and sorrow, but I didn't flinch. She begged one last time, whispering, promises that things would be different, that she would change, that she couldn't live without me. And still, I stood firm. No anger, no drama, just finality. When the door finally closed behind her, I felt the silence return, but this time, it wasn't heavy. It was light, it was freedom. The missed calls, the frantic messages, the desperate tears, they weren't chains around my neck anymore. They were proof that I had chosen myself over someone who never valued me. I didn't win by shouting. I didn't win by revenge. I won by walking away with my dignity intact. I lost people who had never truly been mine, but in the end, I regained the one thing they could never take from me, myself.